live. So good morning here on Zoom. I hope you're all having a great Monday morning, and welcome to another Monday morning Musing webinar. So nice to have you all here. What I do, guys, for those who don't know, is I am going to share my screen. I've got some PowerPoints. And I will also put the chat box up when I do that so that you can absolutely send me any questions or chat with me. So let's share this screen. And let me pop that chat box up. So thank you. I've already seen there's a few people on here. And let's get this slideshow going from the beginning. So I've decided that for the next few weeks at least, that a lot of what I'm going to do is going to show people how NLP can help us. First and foremost, I am going to discuss how NLP helps us in business, because that's part of what I do. But these tools and tips that I show you when it comes to NLP can actually be implemented into your everyday life. Good morning, Richard. Thank you, and good morning all. So thank you. I know there are a few people on here. So this NLP communication skills is going to be over 3 parts. And basically what I'm going to show you is one of the topics or modules that I teach when it comes to NLP. We've only got half an hour, so we're only going to go over it fairly quickly, but I think you get the idea of it. And I'm also going to discuss how it can be used in your business and ultimately in your everyday life as well, because it's really important that we don't forget that skills are skills for life, not just for business or just for your personal life. They always interact. So today we're talking about something called sensory acuity. It is one of the modules that we teach in NLP, and something that I teach in some of my other courses, because I find that it's really, really important. So let's get started. So what is sensory acuity? Well, sensory acuity is observing other people. You actually can use sensory acuity to observe you know, your environment and things going on around you. But today we're going to talk about, because it's communication in business, we're going to talk about it observing other people. So one of the things that tends to happen in when you're either having a sales call, you're working with someone, is that you're so caught up in making sure that you say the right thing or you do the right thing. And I see this with therapists and coaches a lot too. That you feel like you always have to say the right thing or do the right thing or make sure that, you know, what comes out of your mouth next is right, that we're actually not in the present moment. Earlier this year, I was lucky enough to sit into some coaching that was based around the coaching of Sydney Banks, which was all about the thought process. And it actually was interesting, because if you remember that everyone has everything that they need inside of them, you don't actually have to think about what do I say next or what comes next, but just observe the other person. And it's really important that you observe the other person attentively, because if you don't observe the other person, you can't see shifts that is happening for that person that you're observing. So whether it's a sales call, whether it's a client that you're working with, you always need to have your finger on the pulse and looking at what's going on for the client, because usually what comes out of the client's mouth is not necessarily what's actually going on in their head. And sensory acuity allows you to be able to actually see what's going on for them on an unconscious level, and thus being able to you to adapt and be a little bit more flexible and to be able to communicate with that person better. So what we do in sensory acuity is we observe the minute changes in someone from moment to moment. So basically, we're going to go into this a little bit deeper today, but it's basically looking at the person and being able to see the tiniest little changes, knowing that there's been a shift or something's happened, or whether you're on the right path, whether you're on the right track, or whether you've gone off track with that person. Because any change that a person has, you know, whether we're going to talk mainly about the face today, has a meaning. So why would you want to do this? To be fully focused in the moment. Really important. If you're sitting there observing someone rather than thinking about what am I going to say next, or, you know, thinking about what you've got to do after the session, you're fully focused in the moment. You're fully present. You're there with the client because you're watching them. It helps you to get the results you want because you can see if you're going slightly off track just by the expressions in a person's face. Stops you guessing by having accurate calibration. And calibration means that you look at the changes. And we're gonna go into this, and each change or the way a person holds their facial expressions has a meaning to them. So we need to you know, get to know the client. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and get to know what those expressions mean, and that is a criteria attached to those. You know, some if someone is happy, they have a certain look in their face. If someone's sad, they have a certain look in their face. So what you're doing is you're calibrating, which means you're looking at where they were and the minute little changes, and then knowing what those shifts mean, and I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment, allows you to be able to guess more accurately, I guess, whether, you know, the person's having a resourceful shift or a non-resourceful shift, if you're on the right path or you're not on the right path. So very important. It leads to better client communication because you're looking at a person beyond their words. NLP is so much about looking, not so much about what people say, but more about how they say it and what they're saying rather than the actual words that come out of their mouth. So the first thing you need to do is you need to spot the difference. So we're going to have a look at something at the moment. Jolly Prince Charles, okay? So when you look at Prince Charles, and I'd love some of you to comment in the chat box, when you have a look at his face right now, what do you think he's thinking? What do you think he's thinking about when you are looking at this? I don't want to be there. He's not sure at all, quite skeptical. Beautiful. I love those. Okay. So what do you think he's thinking in this second picture? Okay, you can definitely calibrate and see a massive shift between the two pictures. Okay. So the thing here is, so guys, I'd love to know, he is amused and delighted. Thank you. What else do people think? Happy, lighthearted, flushed compared to the first. Absolutely. Fantastic, Richard. I'm glad you picked that up. So really, unless we had spoken to Jolly Prince Charles here and we actually have put a criteria, an understanding between these two facial expressions, we actually don't know what they mean, but you can definitely see a change, and a massive change. And I've put Prince Charles on here on purpose because he has a very expressive face. Not all clients are going to be this expressive. So what do we do? Okay. What do we do between these pictures? First and foremost, we have to work out what does it mean when Prince Charles has that first look on his face in the first picture and then the second look on his face in the second picture, because unless you have asked questions and seen these expressions on his face before, you don't know what he's actually thinking. So let's have a look at this a little bit further. So how do you start with this? You start by talking to your clients and noticing the shifts in their faces while they're actually talking to you. So some of the things that I do with my clients, and we're going to continue this even further next week, some of the things I do with my clients is that I ask them questions, and some of the questions are pretty much basic questions about family life, just to see the expressions that come up in their face. So I might ask them things about something that they really, really love and something that they're really joyful about, things that they're not sure about, things that they dislike. And all of a sudden, I start to build up in my own head a catalogue of what different expressions, different facial features. We're going to go through all these. As Richard said, flushing of the skin, what it means to that particular client. You cannot compare or assume what you think someone is thinking in their head. So the very first place to start is you must talk to your client first and have a criteria based on what you see, because some people smile and can look slightly happy when they're actually embarrassed or feeling a little bit uncomfortable. So you need to know what is it that your client is thinking or feeling, or what sort of imagery they have when they have certain facial expressions, right? So they're different express for different things that should be expressions for different things they talk about. Okay, so really, really important. How they look when they're receptive, especially when you're looking at talking to business clients. If you're trying to have a sales conversation with someone, you need to have a look at what their expression is when they're receptive. This is really, really important, because if you're, a lot of times I see my clients talking to other clients, or telling me about how they thought everything was going really, really well, and at the end the client said completely not interested. And I often ask them, did you watch to see in your pre-talk what they looked like when they were receptive? Because if you're going off track, or you're boring the person, or the person is not interested in what you want to what you have to say, you need to be picking that up. It is almost like getting their baseline expressions. Absolutely. Love that, Jennifer. Absolutely. It is. It is getting their baseline expressions. And, this is why it's so important that you speak to them. And it's so important as a business owner that with your client, you know what they look like when they're receptive, when they're interested, because that way, if you're talking to someone and they're starting to get bored, or they're starting to lose interest, or they're not wanting, they're just losing interest in what you're talking about, or you're on the wrong track, you need to be able to spot that pretty quickly and change tact very quickly. This is why all my calls, all my brainstorming sessions, all my pre-session calls with my clients, I really do prefer to do them on Zoom so I can watch them. It can be done, you can have pre-talk over the phone, but Zoom is so much easier because you're looking at the person and you're understanding what is going on for that person, okay? And you also need to see what what they look like when they're unimpressed, a little bit like the lady in the picture. Because if you're talking to a client and you're not in the moment, and all of a sudden you're going down that wrong path, you can pick it up and you can save the conversation. Okay, and this is also important. We are talking about business here, but this is also important in communication skills with your family and friends and acquaintances as well, because you can do this with them as well. If you're going down the wrong path, you want to be able to see it in the person's face and change tact. So you can see this is something that's really, really important. So here are some of the things to look at, okay? And this is something that we picked up with Jolly Prince Charles, and this is why I use these pictures of him. The first one is skin color, light to dark, or as Richard called it, flushed. Okay, so again, remember, we need to be speaking to the person, have a pre-talk session with the person so that we know that when their skin is a lighter color, this is basically what it means. And then when that person flushes, this is basically what it means. Now, people have that skin color flush where the blood rushes through their face for different reasons. Okay, so you need to know what sort of things create that in your client. Okay, and you cannot assume everyone is completely different. Skin tonus, which meaning the tone of the muscles in the skin. I want you to have a look at the pictures that I have on the PowerPoint. Have a look at this lady's face and have a look at the shine in some of the muscles, how it's brighter in some of those photos and less bright in others. So we're looking for symmetrical and not symmetrical changes in the muscles in the face and the shininess of the tone of the muscles. Okay, again, when you look at these, you know, we've got 12 photos of different expressions from this lady on the PowerPoint. You cannot assume, unless I've spoken to her before, what these 12 expressions mean. You have to talk to the person. Okay, so what we're looking at is getting to know the person, getting to have, as Jennifer said, that baseline of what certain expressions and certain muscles, how they're held in the person's face when they're unconsciously feeling or thinking something. Okay, the next one is their breathing. Okay, a person's breath either quickens or slows down. Now, it doesn't mean that if it quickens, they're excited. It just could mean completely something else to a certain person, but this is the sort of stuff you want to know. So we're looking for subtle changes. So does their breath quicken or does it slow? And are they breathing high up in their chest or are they breathing low? Now, just because a person breathes slow and low does not mean they're necessarily calm, because some people can sometimes breathe in really slowly and really long, deep down breaths because they've just had an anxious moment and they need to just take a deep breath. So you need to understand and see what the person does, okay? So again, these are just some of the things that we need to look at. Lower lip size. And again, have a look at the picture, these pictures of this lady, these 12 pictures. And I want you to notice that in some of the pictures, her lower lip, okay, in some places we've got lines, it's actually thinner, the lower lip, and in some places the lower lip is a lot plumper. Okay, so these are the little things that you need to look at. And it does take time for you to get used to doing this. I've been doing it for a long time now, so it tends to be something that I can do pretty quickly with people, that I notice different facial expressions and different things that they do very quickly, and I can actually put a criteria to those things. And their eyes. Are their eyes focused or defocused? And also too, lines in their eyes too. People, and you can see again, I want you to have a look at that lady, that the bags under her eyes are deeper and blacker in some of the pictures, in some of the expressions, and not so much in others. Okay, so you can't, again, like I said, you don't know what she's thinking, just looking at the difference. Okay, and the pupils can dilate or be dilated or undilated, and this is really important. This is a few things that you need to have a look. And believe it or not, people's pupils do change when they're talking about different things. Okay, so again, something else you need to look at. So, you know, I often, if you have been following me for a while and I speak about the 5-step selling process, these things are done in that very first part of the 5-step selling process, where you're talking to the client. And I tend to have, you know, just normal conversation with the client. You know, because usually the client will sit there and talk to you about the problem that they've come to see you. But then what I want to do is I want to start talking about, you know, things that they are happy about, you know, in their life, because it gives me a point of difference that I can calibrate when they have a shift. And sometimes when I work with clients under hypnosis, you can actually see these shifts in the client while they have not the eyes. You can't see inside the eyes, of course, but you can see subtle shifts around the eyes when the person has their eyes closed and you're doing with hypnosis. You actually see some of these shifts happening, the breathing or some of the shifts happening in their face, not number one, to know that they are under hypnosis, and number two, if they have a shift while they're in hypnosis, they have an aha moment, they're under hypnosis, they're under trance, they might not be able to actually express it, but you can actually see it by having calibrated and having criteria for different things. Sometimes, you know what, they have shifts and I don't know what it is until they come out and I ask them some questions. But sometimes you can tell straight away, you go, oh, have a look at that. They've done a massive shift and they've gone into that happy place of which you've spoken about with them when you've started. And it's easy to ask someone about their happy place. Ask them about, you know, somewhere where they like to go and travel, or a place in nature that they like, or ask them about, you know, grandkids. Grandkids usually gets everyone in their happy place. I know it gets me in my happy place very quickly. So, you know, just talk about whatever's relevant to your client to find your criteria for different expressions. Okay, so that's part A, is sensory acuity. Please join me next week. I will send it out for everyone who's already registered. I will send you out the link for next Monday. Next Monday, we're going to do rapport, which is, again, another part of NLP communication, which is really important. And sensory acuity and rapport go in hand. But what I would like to do is invite everyone who is watching this, whether you are on Facebook, and this is going live today, on Sunday night, this Sunday night, the 13th of December, I have an NLP introductory webinar. So if you have ever wondered what NLP is about, it is a free webinar on Sunday night. The topics that we will be covering is NLP, everything that is taught in NLP. The NLP that I teach is the unadulterated NLP that's been taught for about 35 or 40 years now. So it is accredited with the American boards and the NLP Association of Australia. So it is the plain straight NLP that is being taught. NLP is basically a group of modalities. It's based on excellence. Yay, I should be able to make that one. Usually I'm out on a Sunday night. That'll be great if you can, Kana. It is, you know, NLP is based on the practice of excellence. So I'm going to talk a little bit about NLP. It is a 1 hour webinar, so it's going to be, it might go a little bit more than an hour. I have allocated an hour and a half. But the first thing we will talk about is NLP, why you would want to learn NLP, how it can help you. And, you know, I will go through very quickly all the modalities or tools that you learn. For those who don't know, I am incredibly passionate about NLP and the other things I'm going to talk about in a moment, because it literally, and when I say literally, saved my life. Okay, it's not about the changes I have made in a person. That was the byproduct of becoming a practitioner and then a master practitioner and now a trainer of NLP, but it actually literally saved my life. Some 5 years ago, I am a fourth year master practitioner, fourth year master trainer, 4 of 5 years. So I've got another 2 years to go before I become a master trainer of NLP, but it has changed my life to no end for the last, you know, like I said, for the last 4 years or 5 years since I learnt, because I learnt it 5 years ago. So we're going to talk about NLP. We're going to talk about timeline therapy. Really important to note that I teach the original timeline therapy. There should be a registered trademark on that. Naughty me, I forgot to put it on. It is accredited by the only timeline therapy board of the whole world, which is an American board. There is only one original timeline therapy created by Tad James, who I was lucky enough to have been one of my mentors and trainers years ago. And I am accredited by Timeline Therapy and have actually taught catch-up sessions of Timeline Therapy for the Tad James Company. So I'm very, very blessed. This is the part of NLP that absolutely changed my life. So Timeline Therapy, talk a little bit about that as well. Talk a little bit more about hypnosis, and also talk about NLP coaching. And NLP coaching, of course, can be integrated into business, education, or life, whichever way you want it. Okay, so it's this Sunday night, December the 13th at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, which is Melbourne time. So please, please, please do come along and join me if you have any interest in NLP whatsoever. Like I said, this is absolutely my passion. So thank you again for being here. I'm glad I didn't finish late today. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. But again, thank you for being here. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. If anyone has any questions about NLP or anything that I spoke about tonight, please, please, please let me know. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you all next Monday morning at 10 a.m. where we will do part B of NLP and the communication model of this is part of all the communication that we use through NLP. And like I said, it's not just about business. The tools that I learned, pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for being here, ladies. The tools that I learned through NLP, first and foremost, changed my life on a personal level, changed my family's life, changed my husband's life, and everyone that I interact with around me, and have now also changed my business life. So this is why I teach it, international certified accredited courses in NLP and timeline and hypnosis, because I absolutely love it. Can recommend NLP too. Absolutely, Richard. It is the absolute ants pants, and it should really be taught to children in schools. That would be an ultimate. But my little grandchildren, when they are old enough, I will definitely be teaching them NLP. Thank you for being here, everyone. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Reach out if you need anything. Bye for now. So let's just stop the share. Thank you for being here, guys. Bye.